Welcome to the AI-driven disruption navigating industry transformation podcast. Thank you, Samir. Thank you, Manoj, for joining the session today. This is one of the first sessions in the series of, from the USA chapter. So, thank you for your time and, really um, providing deep insights, to the audience today. We are going to be We are going to be speaking today about AI-driven disruption, and I'm sure all of everybody is glued to what's happening around the globe in terms of introduction of some of the new tools, especially coming from the large language models and ChatGPT arena, which is disrupting a lot of things that we used to do yesterday and today. And in fact, some of the leaders have Bill Gates and others have mentioned it to be one of the most transformative change in the history of computing. So I'm sure as we go into the details, I would love to hear from each one of you your different experiences and what you would like to share from the your backgrounds to let people understand and get a practical point of view on how can they benefit from some of the changes and how can they prepare for them. So let me not spend a lot of time in this, but let the speakers say. And let me first introduce Manoj. Thank you, Manoj, for joining from Bentonville, Arkansas. Manoj is a global product leader with Walmart, one of the largest companies having significant amount of data across the globe and touching almost one of the largest customer bases across the world. And Manoj brings significant experience and in this space, and he will be talking about it from both from his overall experience and what he's doing. And Samir is a young entrepreneur, and he's a serial entrepreneur, and he is, I think, on the fastest pace in doing things in the data world. That we are going to hear from him a lot, and he has built multiple companies. Not only built them, but scaled them very, very rapidly. So good to have you, Samir, as well. And what I will do is, Manoj, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and give you a little bit of a background.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Vivek, for the introduction. So, as Vivek mentioned, I've been in the product space for the last 10 years, for a decade or so, um, working on different products, evolving from um, basic application development to API products to right now working on AI and ML products in Walmart. Um, I think the key aspect of um, the AI at this stage really is this wave of transformational ability that it has across industries. And that's really something I would like to discuss with this panel today with Samir and Vivek. So, looking forward to the talk, Vivek. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Manoj. And Samir, go ahead. Would love to hear a lot more about what you had to kind of say on some of the companies that you built.
Thank you, Vivek. So, as Vivek mentioned, I have been doing a lot around creating new companies, solving new challenges in the society. I I try to call myself a social entrepreneur rather than just a serial entrepreneur. I see the problem that is very native to the people and try to solve it. I have multiple patents in AI algorithm development. Few of the things that I have been working on is the personality development, and based on the personality, how the career outcomes change. That is one of
Hmm.
my key research area right now. I have been working with a lot of small, medium, and large size businesses, trying to help them recruit right kind of resources for right kind of roles. We are using AI extensively in lot of different genre of things, and as the session progress, I would like to throw some light on it, what we are doing.
Perfect, Samir. And I think let me just kind of add like two bit of introduction from myself as well. I think Samir, and thank you, Manoj, for that. So my background is that I have been in the AI and analytics industry for last 25 years. I'm a PhD, and then from Ahmedabad, then later on founded multiple companies, and currently I'm founder and CEO of a company called Softsensor AI, and primarily working on variety of technologies, including especially around both customer facing as well as to deep as medical and other AI technologies. So, so with this background of panels, and we are hoping, that we'll get like a very, very deep perspective on some of the implementations and ideas that you guys are touching upon. So let me first ask a little bit of a perspective, because there is a lot of talk around generative AI and really AI driven disruption. When we're talking about like we are reaching some sort of an inflection point. So let me start with you, Manoj, and as to what do you see, how the AI is changing? What's your point of view today in terms of the disruption that it's causing, and what do you see in next 1 to 5 years, time frame in terms of the disruption?
Yeah, I think as I was saying, AI is really redefining the market dynamics, and it's automating processes at scale that we have not seen before. Especially if you think about different markets like healthcare, marketing, finance, entertainment, even retail. In my case, it's been disrupting by different use cases that are only imaginable in the past. If you think about automation efficiency, right, automating repeated tasks by manual that were so manual in the past is one of the key use case for AI, as well as summarizing data and enabling people to make decisions based on the data points is also another use case. And to come to an inflection point, as you were saying, is trying to understand what happened in the past to where we are at now. If you really think about what happened in the past with AI, it was a predefined set of rules and logic which we are working in the technology field, and these AI systems couldn't handle any complex and unstructured data at that point. But then ML systems came into play, machine learning algorithms, and there's a clear paradigm shift with natural language processing, pattern recognitions, speech recognition, and multiple other use cases, right? So that kind of paved the way to a point right now where we are at, where we are seeing generative AI, where AI is itself is generating content and enabling multiple industries to make decisions. Like, for example, if you think about creative industries like music, artists are
Mm-hmm.
able to accelerate their processes or their aspects of like um, composition of a song or like the lyrics in a very fast process and easier way. Or if you even think about personalization and retail as an example, customers
Mm-hmm.
can easily shop because the company understands what's their past behavior and what's the
Mm-hmm.
product trying to buy. And even if you think about healthcare, right, as an example, early detection of diseases which are clearly identifiable by different symptoms by the past data from different patients. All these different use cases clearly show a paradigm shift from where we are at in the past with a
Mm-hmm.
simple structured process to a generative AI processes where we are able to make decisions with AI driving that innovation in a contextual way.
Great, great. And Sami, thank you, Manoj, for that, very quick and good perspective. So, Sami, you would like to add anything onto that, like, some of the threads that Manoj has touched upon?
Right. So, what Manoj built is a great base for what I want to say on it. Uh, I always heard this thing, right, since childhood, that creativity is something which is very enjoying to a person, right? That is something
Mm-hmm.
you cannot outsource. That is something you cannot learn. Creativity is something that you have, right? But with the generative AI, we have seen people creating, or I'll start with one step back. 3 years ago or 4 years ago, a product came which was NFT, right? People were
Mm-hmm.
creating NFT tokens on top of music or their images so that they can do a copyright and earn some money on it. And
Mm-hmm.
the next big shift was generative AI, where people are not creating images out of Mid Journey, which is a
Mm-hmm.
simple tool where you just prompt and you get an image. You don't need to hire a $40,000 graphic designer to create image or logo for you. When I
Mm-hmm.
talk about industry, that is a huge ROI change in having a product which costs $29.99 a month than a $40,000 employee. Because
Mm-hmm.
$40,000 employee is never a $40,000 employee. It has a CTC to the company, which is around $55,000, $60,000. But if
Mm-hmm.
you can cut that cost with like $300, it's a huge relief in the industry. But there's a important point here. Like, till at what point we are going to say that AI is now not creative anymore. Can
Mm-hmm.
AI create millions of random things and then we say, okay, AI cannot be more creative than that? That is a
Mm-hmm.
point that I think every industry is right now trying to figure out. It's very early in the day where we are saying that generative AI can solve many problems. But what I am seeing right now, trend shift is from copywriting to creating post, creating sales email. Everything is being done by generative AI, which is a huge relief and a huge monetary benefit for any company. And that's where I'll leave this discussion to.
Yeah. Okay.
I
No accident. Go ahead, Manoj.
I was gonna say I echo with what Samir just mentioned about like having a subscription-based model and having a gig economy prosper. That kind of really think, if you think about it, it's kind of upskilling and reskilling people in a way which kind of driven by AI, where people get to learn new skills also with the evolving changes in the technology industry and enabling people to make those decisions and changes to the ways of working. So that's what I wanted to add, Vivek. So it's really interesting concept to bring.
So I think I'm going to distinguish two parts of it, and then I'm going to probably probe a little bit deeper on the. I think you kind of both touched upon a very very important points. You brought a lot of use cases where early erstwhile ML was being used, and then we kind of did some of the generative AI from an organization standpoint. And Samir, you brought a lot of ideas from a point of view, replacing and really replacing the workforce with the new AI. So I'm going to put like these two boxes, which is hey, I see that industry is going to have a lot of use cases which will come as a SaaS applications on top of generative AI, which are going to be more like a consumption inside the company. And then we have the use cases which will be, hey, how can I deploy large language models inside the company to do like some of the things that is only specific to that company. So we're going to touch upon these two dimensions and see how both of these dimensions where they are today technically, and how the adoption is going to happen, and what impact do we see on the correspondingly on the industry. So since we have briefly started with the more and external to I would say using chat gpt or using some of these cloud or cloud a and anthropic and some of these bard as the base case, and then building what I would call as some sort of a domain service on top of it, let's say marketing, email, chats, kind of using them as a service in a SaaS based type of an environment. So let's kind of stick to that. And I would like to understand that how do you see the impact of some of these external uh, technologies becoming suddenly more intelligent and being accessed by day-to-day organizations, especially mids and large size to small size. Do you see what impact do you see on the workforce? What impact do you see on industries? Which industries are going to really really get impacted by that? S- Manoj,
Yeah,
go ahead. Yeah.
I'll go ahead. So basically, I think most of the main industry that's going to get impacted is the governance aspect of things. You think about the privacy of data is really the
Mm,
core essence on.
mm,
If you think about different countries right now, like Canada, for example, Bill 64 in Quebec, or even
mhm,
the European region with GDPR, California
mhm,
with CCPA, a lot of countries around the world are now cracking down on the privacy aspect of things. So it
mhm,
impacts the privacy to an extent by
mhm,
ethical and legal obligation for these companies as well as individuals to use AI in a more ethical basis. Um, as well as be more responsible. And to your point, Vivek, on having these different SaaS companies, small to mid-sized to large companies, having this different shift, and also what Samir just mentioned a few minutes ago, it really changes the paradigm on how and what people need to work on in the future and what they were doing. So they definitely need to reskill themselves, upskill themselves, and change the ways of working so that they're able to be um, present in an environment which enables them to succeed in this ever-changing world of technology. That's kind of my view
mhm,
of like in this aspect. Obviously, there are different industries uh,
mhm,
that could change. Obviously, retail is one of them, which I'm very close to. The
mhm,
decisions that get that get done on a daily basis, whether it's pricing an item to
Mm-hmm.
optimizing the supply chain to optimizing the transport network, and understanding the customer behavior, identifying and summarizing data points. So there's a lot of paradigm shift that's happening within the retail industry, and I think Samir and you can talk about many other use cases in other industries too. But there's definitely a lot of use cases in each industry that I definitely see changing.
Correct. Yeah,
Sure.
I agree on those point, and I'll just add on to few things. Like I'll just start with retail as you started on that line. There was a huge need of data analyst, right, and data engineer in
Mm-hmm.
the past, where they will do all the data plumbing, and data analyst will give you the first level report, which will be like visualization and all those things. But let's say like ChatGPT has something which they call code interpreter, right? You put your data in and you write your question in the natural language that I just want to know how many stores is doing profit this month, and it can show you data in a clearly visualized manner which a data analyst will do, right? And then you can ask second level questions also, third level question also, and it can do all those things, right? Does it mean that chat gpt is going to replace a data analyst? Probably not. What it will do is it free up data analyst time a lot. So now they have to skill up and go to the next level, right? They might be just doing they were very happy doing data analysis, right? Or maybe working on the Excel sheet, right?
Mm-hmm.
Data started from Excel sheet, right? When it actually became a centralized source of system and people started using it. Now we saw Python. After that, we saw like SaaS-based application. Then we saw cloud-based application, SaaS-based application. But now there will be something which will see new domains coming up in
Mm-hmm.
analytics AI sector. We have never
Mm-hmm.
heard about human resource uh, AI system, which is
Mm-hmm.
what do we do with human resource AI? Are we going to predict the salary of people? Because that is usually fixed, linear. It's never exponential, or it is not going to change in a percentage manner because it is
Mm-hmm.
performance driven. But now there is a new sector altogether, which is human resource AI system, where people are going and consulting on the human resource, how they can manage human resource, how they can amplify the skills of human resource. Something which I have seen in the local business, the small industries, a lot of restaurants are there, right? They all have a POS machine. They get data
Mm-hmm.
from POS machine, and they get the first level visualization of how many sales they have done, what all things they have in their inventory. But now there are systems which built on top of POS system, which gives them notification about, oh, you are less on XYZ items and you need to restock because after a month time the sales peak and you need to have it like 45% more than what you had last year. This
Mm-hmm.
is the level of analytics that had came, or the AI that has came to the lowest level of the market. Right now, the
Mm-hmm.
adoption is like around 10%. It's not in the North Texas. What I have like in the Texas, what I have seen is around 10%. It's not more, but
Mm-hmm.
10% is still a significant number because AI is spreading like a wildfire, right? And AI, right? AI started as a buzzword, then it became a center of the market thing, and now each and every business is AI enabled. Why? Because it is a marketable and selling things. People are investing right, left on AI just with the word. Why? Because it has potential to change the lowest level of the market. And if we change the lowest level of the market, the highest level of the market or the big businesses are going to automatically change because they depend also on this lowest level of the market.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what the new disruption of AI is there in the lowest to the smallest industry which we have.
Great. No, thank you, Samir. Thank you for the great answer, and I think Manoj. So I'm going to ask a clarifying question to you, Manoj, and I think that's something pretty important one in a lot of people's mind. That is this debate around when we are talking about AI being consumed to do day-to-day these tasks. For example, summarization of emails, summarization of ideas. Okay, and then you're talking about like Bill 64, a lot of this privacy, pushback. So do you see like different companies, having different level of productivity now just because of their adoption of AI in some of the frontline use cases? Like just I can see like a team using let's say a chat gpt kind of tools, or a crm enabled by chat gpt type of tools, versus a company that's actually not using it. And I would probably see a significant difference in productivity across the two companies, or at least the two functions. So what's your thought on, will the large companies reliant on some of the privacy concerns, or how will those some of those concerns get addressed? Because if it's such a significant productivity differentiator, then what's the solution?
Yeah, it's a really good question, Vivek. So the reason these companies need to look at AI, you bring up a very good point on what's the difference between a company that uses AI versus that doesn't, right?
Mm-hmm.
The company that uses AI can accelerate their product development process, in my opinion, because it provides a pathway for these companies to build a minimum viable product in the least amount of time possible.
Mm-hmm.
All these innovations which we think about in this world right now have started small. Like they started small and iterated over time to grow globally at scale, right? Obviously, this is only possible if you're able to innovate and get to a process quicker than you're going slow.
Mm-hmm.
Companies that adopt AI have this absolutely beneficial point of being able to build an MVP or a minimum viable product and market that product and be able to see those results in a quick fashion than someone who doesn't. So the shift really is about, hey, I'm able to use this product and I'm able to test it out with customers and I'm able to A/B test my product in a sense that is easily identifiable for me to make decisions again, going back to see if they're actually matching with my organizational goals. If they are, then it's a really good case scenario because I'm able to reach my bottom line and top line growth
Mm-hmm.
faster as an organization. So that's really the perspective I think about when really companies that use AI versus that don't. And
Mm-hmm.
obviously, another question you did ask is about how the privacy is being addressed. Um, uh, I think one of the key things to remember is with even the applications right now, the privacy is the number one concern. So, and even if, and I think with AI, that can be even accelerated in a sense to identify this problem ahead of time and see
Mm-hmm.
what the changing evolution with the governments. That also brings up a point of whether governments and other industries should even collaborate with organizations to
Mm-hmm.
participate in this organization and this evolution of AI. So those two are things I do see. Like one is governments and industries participation, and then organizations being more faster with the AI processes to build their minimum viable products.
Got it. Got it. Okay. So from no, thank you, Manoj. I think that's a pretty interesting point because governments definitely are trying to understand this. Uh, I don't think governments are prepared for this level of disruption. Let me be very straightforward with this. Especially the U.S. government, they are trying to now think about it in a very reactive fashion, and typically I don't think anybody, not just government, but not most of the people were not prepared for the level of disruption that we see today. So I think what I will do now is I'll probably go a little bit deeper into what I would call as the within the organization, AI side of things. That means that, hey, how do you really start? I mean, definitely as part of the evolution of this AI, I've seen. I started my journey with SPSS, which was like primary data. Then we moved to secondary data using SAS systems. Then we moved to R, which was like, little bit trying to do an open source. A replacement came up with a very strong functional depth, but not necessarily the scale of an organization. Then we moved to adopting Python, and now Python has become the lingua franca of the baseline. And then we're kind of seeing all this evolution of different services, cloud architectures, and really a kind of an evolution of how we do AI or build AI inside the companies. So, Samir, do you want to kind of get us some bit of an elaboration around how do you see this, examples playing out from both skilling, deployment, use, perspective?
Right. So, what I have seen in general trend is there are two kinds of implementer in the world, right? One
Mm-hmm.
who goes with what is happening in the market, and one
Mm-hmm.
who has some kind of vision and they stick to it, right?
Mm-hmm.
For example, I want to build a product that helps the garbage vendor. do all
Mm-hmm.
their CRM and HXM systems,
Mm-hmm.
right? I'll have a vision of the product and I'll start building it, right? Let's say after 6 months, I'm still in the halfway of my product journey, and a new software comes up which can do all of the things that I have developed till now. And
Mm-hmm.
now, as a leader, I have a decision. Do I pick a tool which already does everything and implement into my business so that I can drive value and revenue from day one? Or do I
Mm-hmm.
still continue my development, which might take 6 months more to get that revenue and value which I might earn today? Right. So this is what basically a leader has to do. They have to be very quick at taking the response from the market and understand where they want to go. And neither of the ideas are wrong. They might be onto something of building a great product, and they might take that 6 months. Now, based on your question, how this industry start implementing something,
Mm-hmm.
everything comes down to the vision. What
Mm-hmm.
is your vision? Are you trying to create or solve a problem that can be solved with a traditional method that you have? Or are you trying to create a fancy solution to a problem
Mm-hmm.
that might not require that kind of technological advancement, right? For example, animal husbandry, right? There are a lot
Mm-hmm.
of animal farms and village tourism in America, right? The
Mm-hmm.
problem is, does that industry requires AI right now? But if
Mm-hmm.
I add a word AI driven village tourism, will that sell much faster? The answer is yes. In the today world, everything is keyword and ad word, right? So it
Mm-hmm.
sells much faster on any marketing engine. Now, how do they adapt it? They will try to start with the most easy solution which they have, go and hire a resource and pay them $150,000 because they think like a data scientist can change any and everything in the world, right? They might even not know whether they have that data pipeline or not yet, but they will go and hire the data scientist, the best in the market. This is what we have been tackling. Like it's a huge problem right now. You have a lot of people who can do a lot of stuff, but you might not have infrastructure ready, or you might not have a vision ready also for AI or data science led product. So that's where I think like a lot of services company came into America, where now they do go and do the consulting. Are you ready for data science implementation? Even if not, we'll build you the first layer, right? We all know, like people who are listening and people who are on this round table, we all know any and every data product require data as the first step, right?
Mm-hmm.
So again, it all comes down to the basic. Like I think like 10 years now, there might be a quantum computing unit which might be doing lot many things that we can think of, right?
Mm-hmm.
Again, the base will be data, right? So industry has to think more on the data side, then think on the vision, and then figure out the gap with the tools and technology they have. So that's what like my usually my consulting framework is also there. But that's what the biggest challenge in the industry right now.
Very interesting point, I think, Samir. Let me just kind of, add to what you're just saying. You're saying that uh, how do you really define each of these industries use cases, and is there any additional value that AI is going to bring, beyond the buzzwords? So I think that's a very, very fair point. And what you're saying is that what comes first? Is it solutions come first? Do data come first? And I think, in my view, that's a very interesting question because, mm, just taking that example of animal husbandry, is this going to be, can you think of, use cases that have not been there? So maybe generate new data, or versus, try and see if the data exists today. So it's all of those are very, very interesting approaches to the problem, and a lot of that would depend on the leadership that's available, as well as the skill set, that do they even have the skill set to even solve some of the problems. So good point, Samir. And Manoj, what's your thought?
Yeah, I think I echo definitely with what Samir mentioned too, and what you said, Vivek, is working backwards from the problem is the number one thing. In if you're going to use any technology, the number one thing you need to do is work backwards from the problem, and then understand to see what are the possible solutions. Obviously, different industries I can like think of right now, and particularly one example I can think of is the travel and hospitality domain. And
Mm-hmm.
also, I'll talk about retail in a bit. But travel and hospitality, if you really think about a customer or a traveler who is going to, let's say, Las Vegas, he doesn't he or she doesn't know where to stay, what are the different places to visit, what are the possible use case for a weekend versus a 7 or 10 day trip, right? And they have to go through multiple different blogs or articles or books or things of that sort. So AI can, in this case, can definitely summarize all that information by
Mm-hmm.
looking at past travelers' data and see how they have spent their time in a certain
Mm-hmm.
destination like Vegas, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's one of the key use cases I can think about. And really, when you see these different parameters that come into play with data, like what are the different stars associated to a hotel, how far is it from a certain well-known landmark, or what is the travel by foot distance to a certain um, location that can get a traveler there. So there are different use cases, and they and also what and also that kind of helps decide a traveler in making a decision by using these past parameters and not be worried about having to make them themselves with no knowledge or no past prior knowledge, with them being there in that location. That's one of the key examples I can think of in the travel and hospitality space as a traveler myself, and I've been
No, I think that's a fair, fair example. So now I think we are kind of, I would like to kind of, maybe go into more like, closing sections of the podcast, and I think of the session, and my question would be that what's your advice to a CXO of a maybe a firm which is sufficiently mid-sized to large size? What would be your advice to different size of firm CXOs on how should they adopt you know the new AI which is coming up?
uh, I'll go first if that's okay, Samir.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. So basically with CXOs, it's about high level vision as well as understanding the long term and short term objectives for a team to be or group of teams to be successful. So my idea would be to go with like understanding the objectives and marrying them with the key technologies or leading technologies like AI. Firstly, to see whether the key objectives are matching with uh, basically implementing AI in their field or industry. And then starting with the pilot project I was just talking about by implementing an MVP solution and seeing how that kind of shapes up and seeing if that is actually valuable to the team, right? And identifying these different use cases by working with boots on the ground team, right? Seeing what is their pain points with customers, and then obviously building solutions or help build solutions for the team. So those are the key things I can think about for different chief officers or executive positions who are thinking to implement AI in their industry.
Yep.
Great. Yeah,
Thank you, Manoj.
I
Thank you. Go
agree.
ahead, sir.
I agree everything you said. Like that's what the base of any organization is, the vision, right? Uh, the one suggestion which I would like to give to any CXO who is hearing this roundtable is don't invest directly on the resource first. Make a company which is a vision first, value second, and then resource, and then technology. The problem is we are doing it in a haphazard manner. We start
Mm,
with resource, we then find technology, then create a vision, and then try to find a value. And at the end, we are left with nothing, just a huge uh, amount of money on our table, which no one is there to take. So
mm.
start using vision, value, people, technology. That should be the order to make any successful MVP or any organization.
Thank you. No, I think Samir and Manoj, this was fascinating to talk to both of you. Let me just add few thoughts from my side, and on to the advice that I would give to CXOs. So I think we are kind of in a very, very fascinating era now where the intelligence in some of the systems, especially what we call as large language models, has fascinatingly gone up. The capability to create large complex models, both large complex models as well as being able to run them on a day-to-day basis is kind of pretty significant. So you've got multiple options to start adopting AI. If you have found the vision, if you have found the use case, and you're now struggling, let's say, to kind of think about how do you really I look at this technology both from a privacy standpoint and from a use case standpoint to implement, then you have got choices in terms of either going with large models like OpenAI. You've got choices, especially on Azure OpenAI, which is more secure, or AWS OpenAI, some of the other options which are more secure with some of the solutions, and you also have options of really building those pipelines in a pretty interesting fashion from both, either you can retune some of the model, but which is expensive, or you can invest into what I would call as retrieval augmentation. But again, resources are expensive. So as Samir said, so getting the vision right, and really then getting to know some of these technologies at a level where are these really at the stage where they can solve your problem or not, is going to be a critical testing that you should do in the MVP stage, before we kind of walk this competitive race. But definitely time is a sense. If you don't do it today, I'm sure the productivity differences between the companies are growing significantly between the adoption and non-adoption. So we're going to see uh, disruption, and we are going to see some players making the most of those disruptions. So I think it was fascinating to speak to both of you, Manoj and Samir, and I will look forward to interacting further on some of these very very interesting topics. And thank you everybody, and we can leave it for questions and some of the other things. Thank you.
Thank you, Vivek. Thanks, Amit.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.